Reptilian shapeshifters are behind ISIS, the Federal Reserve and Sesame Street. This is the False Flag Nation podcast.
And we are back to another episode of False Flag Nation, the episode where we delve into conspiracy theories, the occult, and all things esoteric. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Mr. William Revere. Can you hear me, Will?
Loud and clear.
And this is Joe DeMarco. And this week, we have a incredible episode for you. We're going to be dissecting one of the most famous mysterious and occultic films of all time, and that is Eyes Wide Shut by Stanley Kubrick. Stanley Kubrick's last film ever. He actually died before it was released in theaters, and we figured that since 2016 marks the 15th anniversary since its theatrical release, this was a more than appropriate time to take a look back and see all the messages and symbolism hidden in this film, and what messages Kubrick was trying to send to his audience before leaving this world. But before we jump into that, we just got to do some one pretty big story in the news, and that was the passing of Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia. You heard about this, Will?
Yeah, that was something. I believe it was last Friday, which was the 12th, I think.
Yeah.
And, what an odd timing for an event like this to happen, considering the political turmoil the country's in right now.
Yeah, during an election year. It's Obama's last year in office. I think it was like the night before, or the Republican debate in South Carolina, and that was one of the major topics there. Because if you don't understand how the U.S. legal system works, it's the job of the president to appoint a Supreme Court justice. And typically, presidents will appoint judges that more or less agree with their worldview, meaning if it's a liberal president, they're probably going to pick a justice that leans a little bit towards the left. If it's a conservative one, vice versa. Obama has appointed 2 Supreme Court justices who, as you might expect, tend to lean left. And up till this point, it has been pretty balanced. So there was just, there was sort of a philosophical check and balance within the judicial branch. But Scalia, who was probably the biggest conservative judge on the Supreme Court, his passing leaves an opening that Obama will probably fill with a liberal judge, and that's what the big controversy surrounding this is about, because people think that if the Supreme Court now officially leans left, it could have significant implications for the Second Amendment, for various social issues, interpretations of how constitutional authority should be wielded and whatnot. So this is arguably the biggest story in the country right now.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, and I'd go even further, because there is, especially now after 5 days or so since the event occurred, there's considerable evidence that this was, at the very least, allowed to happen. And what I mean by that is there's some serious evidence that this was a assassination by the powers that be.
He allegedly died in his sleep after going quail hunting on some famous ranch in Texas where like celebrities go hunting and stuff.
Right.
It's they have hotel rooms, you can stay there for a week or so and go hunting. And he just didn't come down for breakfast one day, and his friends found him. He appeared to have died peacefully in his sleep.
But the issue revolving around the controversy is the fact that the cause of death was released to the media so quickly afterwards.
Yeah.
And there was a decision made to not have an autopsy, which is very strange considering such a high-profile candidate.
The story is going around that his family opted out of a autopsy because he apparently was not in good health to begin with, and they allegedly, this is the family's.
Yeah, I mean, take
they're
what
saying.
He's clearly overweight.
But what's suspicious is that like the sheriff is announcing the cause of death like so soon afterwards, and there was no autopsy performed. And said, there's a lot of circumstantial like evidence suggesting that there's some fuckery afoot here. But
definitely,
it's entirely possible. There's some CIA Manchurian candidate butler that smothered him with a pillow in his sleep, and then Obama's giddy with delight. I get to put another puppet on the court. All right. Let me be clear. Hold that pillow down and don't let him push you off. But we will see. It'll be interesting how this plays out. The Republican Congress has said that they are going to delay the approval of whichever candidate Obama chooses. Obama has made it clear he intends to fill the vacancy, so this is going to be a shit show.
Yeah, I also heard another interesting theory that the Democrats would like to postpone that vote as well. And, if Hillary was to be elected, Hillary could potentially choose Barack Obama to take that vacant seat on the Supreme Court.
Oh my God! Could you imagine?
Yeah, actually, I could.
Just the reactions from all the
right,
the leading Republicans if Barack Obama ends up on the Supreme Court. I don't think that's going to happen. There's the story.
I don't think so either.
He's jockeying for the position of UN Secretary General afterwards, which I find a little more plausible. But we will see. We'll see. But without any further ado, do you want to dive into this, Will?
Yeah, let's jump into it. This is not only an entertaining film, but I think it speaks volumes for the elite as well, and it really gives you a window into the pastimes of the New World Order. Exactly.
This film, Eyes Wide Shut, again Stanley Kubrick's last film, was released in 1999. It set the Guinness World Records for the longest shoot ever. It was 400 consecutive days.
Wow.
Of production. So that is a record that still stands to this day. And Kubrick actually died before it came out. It was released about 2 months after his death. Kubrick was 70 years old at the time, so presumably there was no foul play involved because he chose to make this movie, but we can't prove that.
And Kubrick is if you're not already aware of it, he's a prolific director, and he his works have been The Shining also, and Clockwork Orange, Apocalypse Now,
2001, yeah,
right, and those movies are twisted in their own sense, but they all have underlying messages, and they all aim to portray society in a certain way that I think was in tune with his worldview. So I think Eyes Wide Shut is definitely an example of that again.
Yeah, exactly. And the film is just jam-packed with those kind of themes and symbolism. It's long film. It's about 2 hours 40 minutes long. Most of Kubrick's films are pretty long, and there's not a single like wasted filler shot. And there's every single shot in this film has some kind of message hidden inside it. Just the way it's arranged. He was a photographer as well, so he was very good at this. Whether it's the color contrasts or just an overt symbol in the film, which we're going to talk a lot about. But just to set the stage, the film features the it couple of the time around 1999, which was Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, who were married in real life, and they play a married couple in the film. And Cruise's character is named Dr. Bill Harford. He's kind of like a high society type in New York City. He's a socialite. He's a doctor for like wealthy elites. And I don't know if he's a concierge doctor, what have you, but the film opens with him and his wife, Nicole Kidman, getting ready for a party that one of his wealthy patients is hosting. It's a Christmas party. And you see a lot of, the symbolism starts right off the bat as you see this apartment the two of them live in, which is this fabulous, just opulent apartment. Like, even though it's kind of portrayed that he's, pretty well-to-do guy, but there's no way even like just a doctor in Manhattan could afford an apartment like this.
Right.
There's like Greek Corinthian columns in it, and like just exquisite furniture everywhere, and the columns, these two pillars marking the sort of like bisecting his apartment, are the first overt symbol you see in the film. You see these two pillars on either side of the room, and his wife like kind of getting dressed while she's having a conversation with him while they're getting dressed. And the symbolism there is the two pillars of Solomon's Temple, which is a very significant symbol in Masonry. And if you look at old Masonic artwork from like the 17th century and stuff, you see a lot of these sort of sketchings that have these two pillars with the letters J and B on them, and those stand for the names Boaz and Jachin, which are Hebrew names, which translate to "He will establish and in its strength." And those correspond to the two massive brass pillars on the front of Solomon's Temple in the Old Testament. And that's a recurring motif you see throughout this film, and throughout Masonic artwork as well. So that's very subtle symbolism. It's going to go over your head if you don't know what you're looking for.
Right.
But that, I'm somewhat familiar with this stuff, so that immediately stuck out to me when I saw that. Is that something you noticed, Will? You have more of a academic background in this stuff.
Yeah, I mean that is one of those things that and maybe we're in tune to that kind of symbolism, but you see the columns, and that is usually an attempt to portray some sort of Masonic connection, and I think that was definitely done purposefully. I think Kubrick is trying to make a connection, at least that the Masons are involved in what will become the secret society that the main character becomes involved in. So, yeah, I mean, within the first 35 seconds of the film, there's already a reference to the Freemasons. So that kind of sets the tone of the entire movie.
Yeah, and expanding on that, when he arrives at the party, he's walking into his patient's house, and as nice as his apartment was, his patient's house is just lavish. It's a palace. I mean, this guy's, it doesn't say explicitly.
He's a 1%er.
Yeah, he's like an ultra 1%er. He has to be like a hedge fund manager or something to be living in Manhattan and have a place like that. And as he's walking into the party, you see the checkerboard pattern on the floor. again, Masonic imagery, this long hallway. And then this is, he meets his friend whose name is Victor Ziegler. An interesting thing about that is that the surname Ziegler is a German Jewish surname which translates to bricklayer. And again,
so more and more references to the Masonic Rite.
Exactly. What do bricklayers do? Masonry. That's their trade. So that's a little bit more overt there, but it's still warming up. And
now, also in the scene where he's entering his friend's party, what do we see on the wall?
Yes, this is where things get really interesting. You see a series of these stars lit up with Christmas lights on the wall, and they're scattered throughout the house. There's a huge one like over the table with the punch and whatever, and it is it's a Christmas star. There's Christmas trees everywhere and lights and everything, and this just looks like has like multicolored Christmas lights on it, but it's a massive star, and it's kind of an unusual design. It has 8 points on it, like pointing. So like north, south, east, west axis, and then diagonally as well. It's an 8-sided star. And it's this recurring motif you see throughout most of the shots at this party. And it's actually evocative of the 8-sided star sigil associated with the Sumerian goddess Ishtar. Which, if you look this up, you'll see a carved stone relief. I believe it's called the Queen of Night relief, where you will see, a statue of her standing there, the Ishtar, with this 8-sided star figure over her head, and her 2 owl guardians standing on either side of her. And, owl, interestingly enough, what do the elites at Bohemian Grove all have their little ritual in front of?
In front of Moloch, yes.
Yeah, in front of a giant owl statue. What's the hidden creature on the $1 bill on the upper right corner? Little tiny owl. No joke. Get out a magnifying glass. Look for it.
What's Drake's OVO symbol for his recording company?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. These are the hidden in plain sight symbolism here. But what's interesting about this is that Bill's wife's behavior, Nicole Kidman's character, completely changes in this film, in this scene. As soon as she walks into the room with all these stars, the shots are arranged in such a way that it looks like some time passes, and she's acting a little bit flirty, and this other man approaches her and starts dancing with her, and she's acting very seductive and just completely different personality than what was going on before at the house. And that's suggestive that she is personifying in that context this character of Ishtar, who is a Sumerian Babylonian goddess of sex, love, fertility, and war. Kind of an odd juxtaposition, throwing war in there, but that's what they believed in.
Right, and it's no coincidence that they portray her before the entering into the party scene as kind of a mother figure and a caring husband, and then bang, when she walks into this Masonic party, if you will, she becomes more of a kind of slutty, for a lack of better word. And
there was not a lack of better ways to put that, but I get
right,
what
but
you're saying.
You get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There's a transformation in not only her but Bill as well, and it all comes through upon entering this party.
Yeah. Bill behaves differently too. These 2 women start flirting with him. They're at opposite ends of the room, and he's enjoying it. He's having fun, and then his friend, the host of the party, Victor Ziegler, calls him upstairs. He's like, Bill, you got to help me out real quick. And he goes up there, and there's this girl. It's implied that this is his mistress, passed out on a couch upstairs, and she appears to have OD'd on something, and Bill revives her. And Victor's like, hey, keep this on the DL. My wife's downstairs. Don't know everything. But this is suggestive of these ultra rich friends of his being involved in some shady, darker activities behind the scenes, and he basically walked in on it. His friend Victor dragged him in unwillingly because he thought this girl was going to die in his house. But this girl reappears later in the film in a very relevant way to what we're talking about now. And after this party, they go home and they end up having a fight, and Bill's wife tells him just to kind of stick the knife in one time that a few years earlier she almost cheated on him with some other man. She didn't go through with it, but she still thinks about it all the time, and kind of wishes she did. I don't know if she was just saying this to get under his skin or whatever, but it works, and he gets pissed off and leaves, and ends up going on this weird journey of personal sexual discovery. And then this is where the film really turns it up to 11 with the weirdness, because at the party we mentioned earlier, he saw one of his old friends from medical school who was hired as a musician, dropped out of medical school, became a pianist, and he shows up at one of his friend's shows. He's playing at a nightclub, and he tells Bill about these private parties he's been hosting at some big mansion out on Long Island. And he's just like, dude, it's like they make me play with a blindfold. Everything's really like extremely confidential. You can't talk about what goes on there. It's like, but one time they didn't tie the blindfold very well. I saw some shit you wouldn't believe and everything. He starts describing all these crazy, like psychotic activities that go on there. And Bill, whether it's a lust for danger or whatever, decides, he's like, I gotta get into this. I want to see this. So he writes his friend, Nick Nightingale, a little birdie told me, there, catch the symbolism there, writes the password down and hands it to him on a napkin. And he tells him, you need a mask and a costume to get in.
Mm-hmm. So
he goes to a costume shop, buys a costume. So, some weird stuff goes on there too. Do you remember that? Like the owner, the owner.
There's the scene with the owner who essentially, after a little conversation and dibble dabble, you see a woman who is depicted as his daughter involved in what is presumably a sexual act with a couple of Chinese men.
Yeah, it's implied that he's like pimping out his daughter, and this girl appears to only be like 14 or 15, and she's acting all seductive towards Tom Cruise's character as well, and Tom Cruise's character is all weirded out by it and just pays for his thing and walks out kind of in disgust.
And that's kind of, I think we discussed it a little bit, but that was kind of like a preview of what was to come.
Yeah, for sure. It's suggestive of the darkness he's wandering into, the kind of activities those people indulge in. So he gets in a taxi, hands the address to this guy, or the cab driver, and it's a long drive way out to the Long Island to this mansion. And he finally arrives, and the mansion, interestingly enough, this scene was filmed at the Mentmore Towers in Buckinghamshire, England. And which family owns this big palace?
Let me take a guess. Could it be the Rothschilds?
Oh, indeed. This was built for Baron Meyer de Rothschild in the 1800s, and it's just massive. It's this just palatial estate, like 3 stories high, like takes up God knows how many acres. and it has like the mile-long driveway, the works. And
Right.
when he gets out of the cab, something interesting happens. He has this kind of moment of hesitation, then he gets out. He pays the cab driver to wait for him because he's really not quite sure what he's getting himself into, but he wants the cab driver to wait. And when he walks towards the front gate for the ushers to let him into the estate, you hear a crow call 3 times in the distance. And that's evocative, I think, of this scene in that passage in the New Testament where Peter denies knowing Jesus 3 times, and then Jesus had predicted, when the cock crows, you'll have denied me 3 times. And in that passage, after Jesus is crucified, Peter denies knowing Jesus, and then he hears a cock crow 3 times, and he breaks down into tears because he remembers the passage. And that's symbolic, I think, of him making that choice. He's about to cross over into this evil realm, and this is
Right.
his last moment where he has that opportunity to turn back. And then we finally arrive at the party.
Yeah, so this is where things really begin to spice up, if you will. There is, if nothing else, it's just exceptional cinematography. I mean, the colors, the lighting, the music,
Yeah.
the dramatic effects that go through and are involved in this elaborate party/sacrifice scene is just stunning. So if you haven't seen this film, you really need to watch it, not just once, but a couple times to really digest this. But the like we said before, everybody in this party had to have a facial cover, and when when the main character walks into the party, everybody's in these dark gowns, as well as having their face covered by these kind of elaborate, creepy-looking masks, and that's just the norm in this party. So it kind of gives you this creepy, odd feeling that everybody's maybe not looking at you, but watching you. And I think that becomes even more clear as we go further into the scene.
Yeah. He walks into this room, and it's filled with hundreds of people all wearing robes and these Venetian masks. And these crazy, creepy, like fixed facial expressions, which I guess every mask with a face style looks like that. But that style of mask in particular, the Venetian ones, are really peculiar and creepy looking. And in the middle of the room is this high priest figure performing this bizarre occult ritual. He's like waving incense around with these naked women also wearing masks kneeling before him. And these appears to be some sort of black magic rite, and you hear this chanting in the background, which sounds vaguely like a like Christian religious chant, and it turns out that's actually the divine liturgy from a Romanian Orthodox mass being played backwards.
Wow, so there's some symbolism right there. I mean, it's that along with the incense and the head priest dressed the way he is. It's a perversion of the modern Christian mass.
Yeah, it's this symbol of inversion that goes along with these you hear about the Satanists turning the cross upside down. They reverse everything. It's a symbol of contempt and disrespect for the sacred, and that's what's going on here. They invert there's rituals and ceremonies of the mass. They invert the music of Christianity by playing it backwards, and while performing these perverse rituals there. And once he finishes consecrating the sacred whores or whatever they're supposed to be, the women disperse, and they pick a lover from the crowd, and then everyone disperses into different rooms throughout the mansion, and Tom Cruise's character just walks around with his mask on, and he's just watching these people just fucking in front with the rest of them all looking around, and there's just this bizarre, like, ritualistic orgy taking place. And this harkens back, I think, to the Ishtar symbolism earlier, because if you study the Near Eastern ancient religions during the pagan times, part of the religious rites associated with the worship of Ishtar was engaging in these ritualistic orgies as a way of worshiping this deity, and that's what they're doing here. It doesn't explicitly state that, but it's strongly implied. And eventually, one of the aforementioned sacred whores seems to recognize him and just walks over to him and pulls him aside and says, "You don't belong here. You're not supposed to be here." And Cruise kind of plays it off. He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, "You must have me confused for someone else." And you begin to realize after they're talking for a while, this is that girl he saved earlier at Victor Ziegler's party. It's that escort that was up in the room. And she's like, you don't understand who these people are. You're in huge danger. You've got to get out of here. He doesn't seem to recognize it right away, that it's her. But I think the audience picks that up first.
That's correct.
And then eventually he gets called. One of the butlers says, like, "Oh, your taxi driver wants to talk to you," and he brings him downstairs, and the whole crowd's staring at him. And they're kind of in a
semicircle around him.
The whole, like, the high priest is there in his throne, staring at him with his guards, and everyone in their masks is staring at him. And that scene sent chills down my spine, because all the music stopped. There was this kind of, like, sitar twanging, and that was actually like hymns from the Bhagavad Gita, the Hindu sacred text that you heard as he's walking around the house, and, like, suddenly all the music stops, everything stops, it's complete silence. Right. Everyone's staring at him. And they're going to punish him. And they force him to take his mask off and everything. And everyone's like, "Holy shit, we've been infiltrated. How did he get in here?" And the high priest says he's going to be punished. And an interesting thing, if you look at his throne, did you notice this? You see on the high priest's throne, as he's standing there, like, lecturing Tom Cruise about how he shouldn't have done this, and he's going to pay a dear price for it. You see these two eagle heads, a double-headed eagle carved into the wooden back of the chair.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, and that's a symbol, which has some Masonic connotations in certain contexts. It is associated with Austria and Germany as well. The southern Germany, Bavaria, is the birthplace of the Bavarian Illuminati. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things going on there. But the whore woman that he saved, the sacred whore of Ishtar / escort, volunteers to be punished for him and, like, spares his life. So he's let go with a warning. And he disappears. He gets to go in his taxi and drives away, just, like, terrified of what he just saw.
Right.
And everything. And if you remember, he tries to kind of follow up on it. He goes back during the day, and a butler comes down and just hands him a second note, hands him a note saying, "This is your second warning. Just do not pursue this any further."
Right.
But
eventually he ends up being confronted by somebody who was at the party. That's after Bill does some further investigation and finds out that the person who basically sacrificed herself, was killed,
Yeah,
presumably by members of the people at the party.
yeah. He looks in the newspaper and sees an article that this woman, who turns out to be a beauty queen, died of an overdose, and he recognizes the picture as the woman he saved at that party. And he remembers that that voice is the same as the woman who saved his life at the orgy at that estate on Long Island. And he connects all the dots. He's like, oh my God, they killed this woman.
Hmm.
And he realizes that's what they were going to do to me too. And there's a couple scenes where he's being followed on the street, like they're stalking him. And then he is called over by his friend Victor Ziegler, who we met at the beginning of the film. And he confronts him about that girl. He's like, what? He mentions, hey, that girl, I saw her at this weird party, and she's dead now, and I know you were involved with her. Like, did you know about this? He's like, we got to call the police or something. And that's when his friend Victor reveals to him, he's like, I was there. I was at
Yeah,
that party.
I saw
you there.
you. Yeah.
He's like, you need to drop this right now. He's like, you have no idea who these people are. He's like, if you knew their names, I'm not going to tell you their names, but if you did, you wouldn't sleep very well at night.
And I think that scene right there is indicative, and it calls out the the elite players in the world right now. I think that Kubrick was trying to say, like, not only do these things actually exist, do these weird, wacky, fucking crazy orgies, but you would be surprised who are there and who are the attendees and active participants.
Exactly. Like he's implying, this goes way bigger than you think it does. Like
Definitely.
All the ultra elites, movers and shakers in society, the people with real power, are the ones involved in this dark secret society. And you're better off leaving this alone. And the interesting thing about this is that a lot of this stuff we're talking about has parallels in real life.
Yeah, that's where it gets absolutely mind-boggling. Um, Arguably, this scene and a lot of the contents of this film was based off of a real party, um, which took place, probably one of many, in 1972, when it was at an actual Rothschild mansion in France. And there's actually pictures online. I don't know if we should probably post some of those for our viewers, but this is some really bizarre stuff. And it was all in the theme of this kind of surrealist movement. And from the information that we've gathered, these elaborate parties that took place at the Rothschild mansions in Europe, all of the invitations were handed out and hand delivered in this kind of mysterious way, and they were also written in various languages and
I heard that. Yeah, I heard
backwards
that,
as well.
That's what I was going to say. I heard the text was written backwards, like the theme of inversion.
Right.
You have to hold it up in the mirror to see what it says.
Exactly.
And they were wearing, some of these leaked photographs, you see like the Baroness wearing this elk head there, and there are people there wearing Venetian masks and everything. It's just bizarre. And I think that you said the explanation given for that was there was an artist there.
Yeah, Salvador Dali was actually in attendance at this 1972 one.
Yeah, and he was obviously a surrealist artist, so that seems like kind of a plausible explanation for why this is going on. But then, you have these other stories. Like, there's the interview Alex Jones did with Sean Stone, the son of Oliver Stone. I was one of the biggest directors in Hollywood. Or he said straight up, he's like, those Eyes Wide Shut parties are real. Like, this stuff really goes on. It's like, whether you believe in it or not doesn't really matter. The people who are doing this stuff believe in it.
Right, and these type of gatherings are just essentially a ritual, and like you said, they believe that this kind of empowers them, and that it attracts some sort of energy, and that's the real disturbing stuff. And one of the other things from that 1972 Rothschild party was uh, at the guests' tables. They had all sorts of decapitated babies, the doll figurines, and warped subhuman creatures, which was furthering this idea of just a perversion of the human experience and a perversion of anything that's good. So it was really bizarre stuff. You definitely have to check out the pictures, but
Yeah, we'll post those for you, definitely.
it's just more of this occult, ritual, bizarre, elite kind of new world order agenda, and
Yeah.
uh, you get to see a glimpse of their world in these pictures.
Yeah, and those aren't the only photos. You see the photos of this Baroness Rothschild. I think she's from Belgium, and she's wearing this like this little goat head pendant on her
Right.
necklace, and she's wearing one that's it's just like a straight up Satan head around her necklace. She's drinking this chalice, which one can only assume is filled with blood. Uh,
Of babies, yes.
in the photo, and then you see photos of other elites as well, like the one with the British royal family that was taken much more recently. This was only a few years ago.
Is that the one with the belt or the ring? The Baphomet head ring?
Well, that I think that's the Rothschilds again, but this
Yeah.
one was you see Prince Charles and his wife wearing Venetian masks, exact same style as Victor Ziegler's was wearing in this film, and you see some of the entertainment, presumably making quotation marks with my hands, walking in, and they are much like the ceremonial horrors in this film, where they're scantily dressed. They're wearing like bat demon wings and masks on their hands, and just like little tassels on their nipples and heels. And this is in broad daylight. They're being like filmed by paparazzi walking into this party, and this was obviously like all VIPs and celebrities going to this stuff close to the public. But who knows what's going on in there? Maybe they're getting a little bolder because this film's already out there. They're just kind of rubbing it in people's faces, like, yeah, we do this. So what? What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, I think so too. Uh, they're operating in the open at this point. I mean, if you think the way they're warping things is that if you call the New World Order out on their bizarre activities, then you're the nut job. Yet it's hiding in plain sight. You just have to be able to expose it, and the people that do are just deemed crazy.
Yeah, it's it makes me wonder if the point of this film was Kubrick trying to warn the public that this stuff really goes on, because this is one of those things you kind of heard rumors about it. It was just like, even in the conspiracy cosmos, this was kind of a fringe thing, but Kubrick just threw it right out into the open and
Yes.
made this film just boldly suggesting that the global elite, or at least the elites in New York upper crust society, which would include people like the Rockefellers and the George Soros and what have you. um, I pick on George Soros a lot on this show.
Yeah, he deserves it. He's just a scumbag.
But just people like that are engaging in these activities. He's strongly implying that this stuff is taking place, and that there is dark occult meanings behind it. And up till then, that's not something anyone had really been coming out saying. At least not to my knowledge. Everything back then was a lot more political in nature. You had like the Bill Cooper stuff, and Alex Jones was getting started around then.
Right.
But and that's something that's kind of stuck since then throughout the conspirasphere, if you will. This idea that the global elite are engaged in occult activities, and again, he didn't make it up out of whole cloth, but he, I think, was exposing an underlying truth. There is, there were these things like the Aleister Crowley's Society and what have you, and there were always,
Right.
again, kind of whispers, but he was just coming out saying it. It's like, yeah, this stuff happens.
Yeah, and I think this is just scratching the surface as well. I think we will find out exactly what goes on within the next couple years. I mean, it's only a matter of time before someone does an Alex Jones-esque infiltration of a party like this. Technology has advanced so much that it makes it more and more possible for people to expose things like this. So we can only hope that something like that comes out. But as for right now, this is probably the best glimpse into the New World Order orgy parties.
Yeah, I mean, this is presumably what was going on at Davos a few weeks ago at the World Economic Forum. And,
In the Bilderberg group.
yeah, one can only assume there's a whole cadre of activities and attendance and ceremonial horrors and slave boys with the hors d'oeuvre trays planned for the Bilderberg conference in June. And, this, it's my opinion, this kind of thing happens on a fairly regular basis. Kubrick obviously was a huge director in his time. He knew a lot of very powerful people. He was in a position to know whether or not stuff like this took place, and he wanted to warn people. And, this sort of hidden symbolism, he did this in all his movies. And I think this was just, he knew this was going to be his last film. He knew he was old, he didn't have much time left, and he wanted to get the message out while he still could. And it's amazing this film wasn't suppressed as well. I think it was, I guess, because he was such a big director, the public would have, there just would have been too big a story if they tried to suppress one of his movies, so they had to let it get out.
Or it was just allowed to happen because it was so absurd to the uneducated. And this is, again, one of those examples of operating in plain sight.
Yeah, it's like that old, there's that story of some Nazi official, I don't know if it was Goebbels or whoever was talking about the Holocaust, saying that like this story is so shocking and preposterous that even if you told everyone, no one would believe it.
That's absolutely true. I think that that's kind of the situation that happened with this film.
Yeah, people, I think too many people just kind of watch it. They think, oh, that was spooky, and then they just go back to American Idol or Pornhub or whatever their life normally consists of, and that's you're missing the point. It's very much like that last scene in the film where Tom Cruise and his wife have reconciled, and they're going out Christmas shopping with their daughter, and they're running through the store, or her daughter's like skipping through the store, and she skips past this whole display of board games called Magic Circle.
Wow.
And that's symbolic of the circle where the occult activities took place just an hour earlier in the film, where all these bizarre rituals were happening.
So again, they're kind of concluding with another hidden message there.
Yeah. Well, at that point, I think one of the messages that Kubrick was trying to send was that past a certain point, it's not hidden anymore. It's right out in the open, and people choose not to see it. They just go through their life with their eyes wide shut.
That was well put.
I think that's why he chose the name.
So overall, in terms of just being a film and not looking at it from our standpoint, How would you rate this film?
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, even if you're not into this conspiracy stuff, I mean, honestly, we kind of gave away the whole film. We probably should have done a spoiler alert before getting into all this, but we are assuming you've already seen it. We're assuming if you sat through an hour-long video on YouTube, you've already seen the film. So, this pretty much everything Kubrick made is incredible. He's the top echelon of filmmakers of the 20th century, and this is, in my opinion, arguably his best film. I think it's a toss-up between this and 2001. But, I think this is mandatory viewing for anyone who's into this conspiracy stuff and people who just like suspense films as well. This is, you are really missing out if you don't set aside some time to watch this.
I agree. So overall, watch it and then watch it again. Because you're bound to miss things the first go around.
Absolutely. There's so much of this stuff. Again, you put it perfectly a few minutes ago. You just scratched the surface. We covered a lot here, but there's no way you're going to catch all this stuff the first time you watch it. Like this, I had to go back and rewatch it a couple scenes several times before I caught everything. And I'll go back 6 months from now, watch it again. I'll probably still see some more things that I didn't see the first few times. It's one of those things, you're never going to catch everything the first viewing. You can always go back and see more layers of meaning.
Right.
But, wow, we're just about 50 minutes. That was a pretty solid breakdown of that film. I think there's a handful of these videos analyzing Eyes Wide Shut. I think we are a cut above most of them. Honestly, I've listened to most of them for researching for this, and comparing our notes versus theirs, and I think ours flowed a lot better, to be honest with you.
I agree with that. So let's see what the people think. Obviously, comment. Let us know what you think about the podcast and on YouTube. And again, other topics that you guys want us to discuss, let us know. Because we're always looking for new ideas and new themes to explore. So your input is critical.
Absolutely. So don't forget to subscribe on iTunes. Leave us a quick review. Subscribing helps you because you get our new shows automatically every Wednesday. Except for this week, we were delayed one day. Don't worry about that. It helps us because it makes our ratings go up. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at falseflagnation.com. I stuttered there. On Facebook, and our official website at www.falseflagnation.com for show notes and more. For this episode, we'll have a lot of show notes because you're going to want to learn more about the details of things we went into, and we're going to lay that all out for you there, give you links to other sources where you can explore this in more depth. And just check in regularly for more updates. It's a growing community, and we're glad to have you here. But that's all for this week. That's all I got. Will, anything you want to add before we sign off here?
That's all I got. Looking forward to next week's podcast.
Very good. Very good. Well, that's all for this week. This is Joe DeMarco signing off. And
William Revere out.
All right, that's all for this week. See you later.
I have to edit that.